Hello and welcome to the Go Far Fast show, the show that gets you, our small business community, to the answers that you most want to know fast. So massive thanks, as always, to the National Enterprise Network for sponsoring the show. And I'm back with my co-host, my trusty business friend, Aaron Patricks, head of accounting at Bofix and QuickBook Labs' Guy, who will tell you everything you need to know about bookkeeping and how to use QuickBooks.
That's right. And she's the fabulous Merle, the founder of Ferilio, which is the essential small business legal aid who is fighting the big fight. Hashtag leave no small business behind, which I'm sure you'll all agree is a fight worth fighting for.
Absolutely. We do not forget that hashtag ever. So we have a cracking show for you today, folks. If you are a student right now, if you are learning how to run a business, if you're really thinking about education and what comes next, then today's guest is definitely one for you to pay attention to. And I'm so excited, aren't you, Aaron, to hear his answers to the questions we've got lined up.
Can't wait, Merle, can't wait. So today we have the pleasure on the show to the one and only Zubair, who started Znotes out in business as a 16-year-old. I can't believe it. Znotes has crossed over 20 million hits and reached 2.5 million learners and educators from across the world. Znotes is on a mission to make it possible for anyone, anywhere, to make their life better. And I certainly can't wait to ask some questions about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as we go through today's show. What the format is exactly the same as we normally do, guys. So questions from us, first of all, to Zubair, and then questions from you that Aaron and I will do our best to put faithfully to Zubair as you put them to us. So, Aaron, shall we invite Zubair onto the show and get cracking?
Zubair, tell us about Znotes, your underground movement. What's taken the global student population by storm? Why is it so? What is it about it? What's the reason why suddenly we've got so many hits and so many everything else that's going with it?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me here. I really do hope to justice to some of the questions that are coming up. Absolutely. Znotes is a community-led learning platform. And I think that word community is what really makes a difference. It all started off when you say 16-year-old, it was a 16-year-old's little blog sharing his exam resources. But really what changed the tale and it gives me the reason to stand in front of you here today to speak about it is because it turned from something that was kind of simply selling, putting up your own resources to actually a community developing, creating, and learning together. So we started off with just, as Znotes suggests, revision notes for certain examinations. And we've just expanded into a whole bunch of other stuff, which includes stuff like you guys do, podcasts, live classes, a space for peer-to-peer learning to happen. And we're really on a mission to end educational inequality for young people everywhere. That's us.
I think it is such a powerful mission, Zubair. It's a mission that Aaron and I both feel very strongly about as well. You're another barrier smasher. And we love anybody on this show who can smash barriers to knowledge, to empowerment, to the things that really matter to us individually, as well as in the teams that we work in business every day. So it's a cracking mission. And, I think everyone here wishes you every success as you scale up this underground movement that has become this huge success. Zubair, the next question I wanted to ask is really to do with what's been happening recently. Students from GCSE students all the way to university attendance, we've seen massive upheaval in the way that education has been running. Do you think we're changed forever by this? I think I know the answer to this question already, but do you think we're changed forever by this? What do you feel is the legacy that's been left behind by this upheaval?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it that we're going to look back and say, the time before 2020 and the time after 2020, for many, many things. I'm sure that you guys have had some experts talking about economics and businesses and all that. But in terms of education, we're seeing a lot of those ideas and concepts that were meant to be in place, talking about things like accessibility, like remote access, like the fact that why do we have to travel thousands of kilometers out of our homes to go to a certain university or a certain conference to attend, or all these questions are now being like raised. Suddenly, all these university conferences are now happening remotely. Everyone is being able to attend. Classes are being run live. Things are completely different now. And for, like, without going more into like the current climate, I think what's going to be left behind is the fact that we were unable to really leverage technology when it was present. It has always been present. It's not like Zoom is a new invention. It's always been there. It's not like we weren't able to attend a live class 2 years ago. Suddenly, this kind of pandemic has accelerated those things. It's caused us to rethink how we deliver our content. So we're going to be thinking about that. We're going to be talking about why the hell have we not been doing this, years and years ago.
Love that. And I love that whole concept about having to rethink as well, because it's not that we're kind of reinventing the wheel, is it, in terms of what we're trying to teach people? It's just how we actually give that information over. And I think that's really, really insightful. And I know I hark back to it again, but as you said, 16-year-old and setting out. And it's just amazing because it's that headspace of being able to be studying and actually doing what you're helping students to do. But also at the same time, you're actually looking at this entrepreneurialism and trying to set up your own business. So, with that, how is, when you were thinking about Znotes, how did you think about how it was going to help support students recently? For example, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're plugging the education gap, open up access to education that traditionally has not been possible? And then I suppose making education more interesting and more immersive as well.
Sure. So when lockdown happened, our cogs in the brain in lots of our team members started to run, and we were, suddenly people were ready to take up new ideas, and we wanted to share some cool new stuff. So we've always been doing these kind of super cool revision resources for the kind of GCSE A levels and beyond. And then we realized, we're all at home, we have a lot of time, and we're all sitting down in the Zoom lessons. What can we do? What can we disrupt within this framework, this rigid structure that is our educational system? So we launched a couple of things, actually. We've always been doing our podcast, so you can see why my mic is here. And the Tomato Timer just kind of collaborated with STEM UK to run a really, really cool series with the STEM ambassadors who would have been out in schools teaching and mentoring their students. Were instead joining us on a podcast and telling us about their STEM careers. We launched Znotes Live, an idea where we thought, how about we bring the community and how about we bring the podcast idea to a live lesson? So running through YouTube Live, we have a host and an expert and a really nice and concise episode, kind of like how you guys do it, and a very well-structured kind of design of going through the whole syllabus in pretty much 8 to 10 weeks, just to kind of brush up the gaps, make sure that people who don't have access to those expert teachers might be able to listen to this, watch this, and be able to get on that kind of same footing. So there's some other cool stuff in the background as well. We've been working very hard on new features and things to integrate within our online platform, which we launched a couple months ago. But yeah, it's just been really, really cool for us. I know I shouldn't be smiling this much, and the pandemic has been horrible. I cannot express how difficult it has been for not just all of us, but even specifically for members of our family and people and our loved ones. But it also has shaken a lot of our status quo. It's shaken what we've always believed in, and I hope that this can be a positive change as well. We need to look at all the things that are happening and see it in the light of kind of positiveness.
I think, I love what you're saying here, and I agree with you. I think we are being forever changed, and there is an enormous amount of positive in all of this. But I think also what you say about supporting people who, may, because of the pandemic, not have been able to get into school, not have been able to get face-to-face sessions with their tutors. Many of us, I think, in education feel quite unconfident. We do suffer, many of us, from imposter syndrome, even when we're students. Other people are better than us. Other people seem to have it sussed. I think what you're doing in terms of providing this sort of massive support network, and this way to build up your confidence again and make sure you're not falling behind is incredible. And I think that is something that a lot of the traditional organizations and institutions could really learn from too. I mean, you touched on it a moment ago, Zubair, but how else are you planning to scale up? Because I know scale up, now that you've sort of graduated, is a big thing, isn't it, for you? You're really focused now on sort of building out the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So scale. And with scale comes the fact that all your processes, everything that you do, needs to be kind of less and less, I guess, humanly engaging. So for example, just to like paint the picture, when I was 17 or 18, when Znotes first started getting these enthusiastic emails saying, hey, I could help out with this, I would sit there and reply to every email. I'd work with every single contributor along the way. I still remember replying to every single comment which would come on the blog. That became impossible after hundreds of comments would come every single day. And it's been amazing. So we started off with like a team of 4 or 5 guys. It's grown to about 14 interns, about 5 or 6 volunteers, a bunch of mentors which like talk to me every few days, and contractors, developers. Everything's happening, and I think even now we feel at capacity. We feel like, oh, we could be doing this, and this, but we don't have the ability, resources all the time. So for me, the next couple months are really, really doing exactly what you're talking about, Mary. It's really about ironing out those processes, making super scalable, so that it's not about me anymore. What I want it to be is that, this is the concept. This is like a toolkit that you can use. Now, here are some ways you can contribute, add to the value that Znotes provides. But localize it. Let's contextualize it to the places and exams that you're doing, and just tap into the resources and the technical expertise we provide. And so, yeah, we're calling it the robustification process. That's what's happening in the next couple of weeks and months for us.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And what I love about that is that and we see this a lot with our clients. It's that this Znotes is your baby. It's your business that you've built from day one. But you've already learned, and you've already kind of taken on board the advice you've probably been given, that you've got to make it less about you, and as you've already said, and it's about that's the only way it's going to be scalable. And it's amazing that you've already kind of found that, and you've already given us kind of an insight into how you're going to turn that around, and in your mindset more than anything, in terms of being able to give an opportunity for you to actually scale it and get it to the places that it needs to be. And that's really, really important. And my next question to you, though, and I'm sure it's a question you get asked a lot, what's your advice to students wanting to study but feeling frustrated or intimidated by the current educational structures and or challenging limitations with COVID-19's created? Because at the moment, it's a little bit doom and gloom, unfortunately. And we want to put positivity out there. There is still ways. You're showing this of how is it. Can you give us some insight on your advice to students at the moment?
Well, I think I can give real life experience about that, because when COVID hit, I was in my last term at uni. So I was lucky enough to have done all my 4 years in person and had lectures and all that. But suddenly I was getting Microsoft Team lectures from some of my professors who had never used anything but a whiteboard and a chalkboard. So challenges were apparent. And they didn't think that, so I studied a math degree. We don't even use Turnitin or any kind of tool to actually submit stuff. We actually write on paper, go into class and submit our paper, receive it. Like, it's as if we're back in the 50s, 60s. There's nothing has changed. So it was definitely a big jump for me to just accept that things were not going to be how they have been for the past few years. I've obviously, a lot of my team members are also heading into uni, and my sister, she's going into her second year at uni as well. It's tough. I have nothing to I cannot like phrase it in any better way. It's tough. It's going to be different. But what you have right now is an opportunity to leverage the situation that you're in. You might not be at university. You might be sitting here remotely listening in. You might be not even in the country where you're supposed to be studying because of travel restrictions. It's about making the best of the situation you're put in. There are yes, it's not the best. You're not going to get Freshers Week. You're not going to be going out with your friends. Suddenly, you're going to be trying to put masks where your phones and wallet would have been going. But all I can say is that some things might be different. You know, you might be finding more time at home. You might be seeing that there are specific, opportunities, internships, remote things that you could do, which you may not have, which may not have been available. Suddenly all these companies which you might be imagining to work at are now offering remote opportunities. Why not tap into that? So it's a really, it's not a very direct and not a very clear answer. The reason being, I'm not 100% sure about it. But what I can say is that we're all in this situation together. We need to make the best of what we're given.
Yeah, and I think that's very sound advice, actually. And I think just to echo the point that you made about look for the other opportunities, I think in Aaron, it's true, isn't it? In every period of adversity, opportunities emerge. And I know from the time that I spent speaking to people in the student community, typically for me, it's talking to folks like you who are thinking about starting a business, or actually are starting a business in some cases, even with you, Zubair, people who are scaling up. A lot of people are looking for those extra opportunities, as you say, the remote internships, reaching out and saying to people, I can do a piece of research. Is there something you want to know? Can I do a bit of competitor analysis for you? Go find out what's going on in the market, who's doing new stuff. A lot of businesses right now are looking for those kinds of solutions. And so I think you're right to say, actually, lever the extra time that you may have if you're not traveling, if you're not commuting. If you've got a little bit more flexibility over the way that you study, then, enrich that study with life skills, with life relevant experience. That means you can still bolster up that CV when it comes to applying for jobs after your studies finish. I think, guys, it's time to turn to your questions. I had a cracking question to Zubair, which I will park for now. We can come back to it at the end, about whether government and schools and universities are doing enough to educate and to flex around this kind of new normal. But the first question of our community I'm going to dive into right now. Zubair, are you ready? He is. He knows what's coming. So Znotes is such a great idea. I didn't know about it. More students need to know about it. There you go. So you can have even more people reaching out to you, Zubair, to answer. Please do let more people know. What kind of success rates do students get if they use Znotes?
A really good question, and it actually is a kind of motivation for what we're doing next as well. So a lot of what we've done, when you start off at school, you're not really thinking that's going to reach so many people. So in many ways, there was nothing like a success metric that was associated to what we're working on. What we do have is a whole bunch of testimonials, students from all over the world sending in their messages and talking about how they've been able to transform from a certain grade to a certain grade, how they've been able to get to their universities of choices. And, some of our team members, they've gone on to scholarships and studying at places like University of Leeds and Carnegie Mellon and best universities in the world. And it's I think we don't have metrics for you, specific like stamps that, increase 90% or 80%. What we can say is that join us, and I'm sure that whatever you want to do, it might not be academic. It might be learning about, social skills. It might be learning about an interest that you've never been able to tap into, but suddenly you found a friend across the world who has the same specific interest as you. What we are working on as well in the side is to create an impact report, and we're relating our metrics and times of use on the platform to some really interesting things that we can hopefully share for this annual kind of first thing that we do. So that's our slightly shady answer for that.
I know, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I'm loving the fact that it's not just, purely on the education. Like you said, you've got that social aspects and everything else. And I think during this time where people have maybe furloughed or whatever the reason is, they've got more time on their hands, that could be a really good resource for them to get some more life skills, to get themselves kind of get through this. And it's a really good way if anyone out there is kind of struggling through these times. But if you've got an opportunity to learn something new and kind of push yourself forward, it's one of the best ways of coping with this sort of issues that we're in at the moment. One of the other community members who came through, and this is a cracking question, really, really good question. They're saying that they have to take a year out from going to uni, unfortunately, because although they got their grades, they didn't get their offer accepted in time. It looks like I won't get much chance to get a job, although I'm working a few hours at bar night. Do Znotes offer any courses or other forms of online learning that could help me not to waste a year of my life? It's a great question there.
Yeah. Even without COVID, I knew friends who had challenges with visas and things like that, which were in the same position as us as a student. So very similar to what you guys are doing. I think the Go Far Fast show would be an awesome place for them to look at. But we also do a similar thing on our podcast, the Tomato Timer, where we bring super interesting guests, and in a 25-minute kind of really interesting conversation, with questions exactly as you guys do, raised from the community. We try to learn from their super interesting and often unconventional experiences in life. And we have everyone from like, big people in industry, to entrepreneurs, to people who are still students and running a kind of a side hustle on this, and that kind of mentality of what can we do while we're not at uni. So I would recommend checking that out. We're also thinking about things to develop within Znotes, which are going to be less linked to the syllabus and more linked to life skills, things like entrepreneurship and things like sustainability, things like equality. I know I don't even want to go into this because it's going to be another full show episode, but there are so many challenges that we're suddenly being highlighted, that we're suddenly thinking about, which have always been present. Let's not forget about that. But the fact that we have that headspace to think about some of these challenges has meant that there's a lot more happening out there. There is obviously things happening in Znotes, there are opportunities being listed in the community, but make sure that you also keep your eyes out and just, if something sounds interesting, reach out, speak to people, find yourself a mentor, speak to, whether it's from companies to just like the business down the road, and ask them if they can get some help from you. And there, again, repeating my first point is that opportunities are present. It's all about going out with the right mindset and discovering them and actually pushing yourself to do them.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, two things I've seen a number of people do recently, broadly with success, and I think with a lot of positive mindset impact, have been volunteering. So you can still volunteer remotely. It's slightly different to volunteering that we typically might think of in the traditional sense, but there are plenty of volunteering opportunities. The other thing I've seen a couple of people do recently, which has been amazing, and I am loving following these, is blog. Many of us have all these ideas in our heads, haven't we, Aaron, that we never get a chance to share because there's never time. It's the kind of the small and the quirky, the stuff that occurs to you every day, but you don't quite get chance to kind of jot down. People are blogging, and blogging creates such a multitude of different skills. And before you know it, you're managing social media, you've got a community, you're conversing about things that could potentially be a business idea. If nothing else, you're keeping your brain sharp, your skills there, you've got something to put on your CV when you do go back to uni. And, who knows, some of these ideas might actually turn into something that makes you rethink the way you want to study. So I think there definitely is a sense of opportunity. You don't have to waste a year. And I think if anyone's sitting around feeling like I'm going to waste a year, get up and see what else can be done. And if you're short on ideas, reach out, go to Znotes, see what other people are talking about doing and how they're learning, because there is still a lot that you can do. It needn't be a waste of time. Next question for you, Zubair. I like this question because I relate to it completely. I'm so used to learning from people in person. And I'm nervous about not having this as much at college because of the coronavirus. Do you have any advice for adapting to online learning and doing it well? I end up feeling quite isolated. And I know I work best when I can chat with my friends about what we're doing and share ideas. Sometimes I just don't feel very inspired to watch things on my laptop. Being remote doesn't create friends or keep people feeling connected.
Yeah, I resonate completely with this as well. The best way I learn is sitting around group of friends, just talking loudly and just like hashing out math problems after math problems. I feel like I talk about it as if it's back in the days, but it's just like literally a couple months ago. It's challenging. Online learning. The biggest challenge with online learning, I think, is the fact that exactly that social disconnect. As much as we wanted, and as much as I'm enjoying this show very, very much, I would have loved to be in front of you. I would have been able to hug you and say hi to you, and after we've done the shows, have a coffee afterwards. That's what that should have been perfect. And unfortunately, that's not possible. We're humans. We're social animals. We want to be around people. We want to be loved. We want to be cared for. We want to be having conversations. And online learning sometimes it is so artificial, right? It's almost like you've looked at a classroom, you've taken away everything that's around surrounding it, all the teasing that happens in the corner, all that funny kid who always makes a quip at the end of everything the teacher says. All of that is gone. I think the first step would be just accept it, to realize that this is different, that this is not school anymore, that this is not university anymore. That first step will help you, because you will not kind of push yourself down when you think about the fact that you haven't spent 9 to 5 studying, because at the end of the day, what you're getting in a 1 hour Zoom lecture is very different to what you would have got in a 1 hour lecture in class or in your university, and it's very, very different to what you would have got if you were in a school and you were sitting in a classroom full of 20 kids. So accepting that is a big part of it. I know that when I started getting some asynchronous lectures, I couldn't even focus for 45 minutes or 50 minutes straight. I'd have to pause it. I'd have to take my head away and think about other stuff. And I'm a very social person, and I have the way I've been kind of surviving is through my running. I need to get out every so often. I need to go out in the outdoors and just feel the wind on myself and feel the sunlight, or when it is sunny. And that's the way I've been coping. And I guess that's what I would say as well. Find something aside from learning and interleave it. Build it around your day. Don't make it so that you're sitting in front of your laptop or your computer for 10 hours straight or 6 hours straight. Get something, eat something, get out of your house, and remember that this is not what university is like. Remember that this is a very different form of learning. Online learning does not equate to in-person teaching. And finally, find yourself people, friends, community. A lot of people are feeling the same way. Just reach out to them. You might have seen someone in your Zoom lecture. Message them if they sound like they're asking the right questions, if they're going to resonate with bits of you. I would enjoy. I remember even when we were still normal, I would still do Zoom or I guess we did Skype calls, and we were just like all 5 or 6 of us would be on a call together, and we'd be in our own dorm rooms and we'd be working on our own stuff, but we'd still be around each other. And having someone making a bit of banter while you're doing your math problem is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I can relate to that massively. There's about. I mean, I have the other hat on, so I'm a trainer and a tutor for QuickBooks. And pre-lockdown, it was all about, for me, it was going out there and training and doing my craft in front of people and talking to people and helping them when they've got issues and problems. And that, as trainers and as tutors, that's what we thrive on. We thrive on that interaction, that human interaction, and being able to go in front of people and everything else. So it's not just kind of thinking about it from the students' point of view, but it's also from the tutors. They're missing out on their favorite part of why they do their job as well. And I think, I think it's massive what you said there about accepting, because that was the first thing we had to do as an organization. We had to think, well, we're not going to be able to train the way that we'd like to train. We're going to have to find an alternative that's going to be engaging, and it's going to hopefully, like you said, going to have that opportunity to emulate as much as we can in an online world. And it has been tough and it has been tricky. But I think when we decided to build an online platform and change everything from being in person to online, one thing we knew from day one, that even if the government told us tomorrow that we're allowed to go and train again, we're not going to get the same people coming back, because people are anxious, people are nervous. And that's what we've got from that next question. Again, brilliant question here. And they're saying how they're really anxious about being back in contact with people. She says her mum's shielding and I need to keep her safe and help out, but I also need to study and I want to do well. Can Znotes teach her in any way of how, instead of going back to sixth form and having an opportunity to still learn those vital lessons?
Could you like just add a little bit more to the questions to just make it a bit more specific?
Yeah. So from her point of view, then she's just, I think, more than, and you can understand this. She doesn't want to go back into that real world scenario. She doesn't want to have to go out there and actually go and make contact with people, because she knows that, you know, she's putting people at risk, or she's putting her mum at risk at this point. So is there any way that Znotes can help out someone who, you know, they're not being forced, or you know, that there is an opportunity for them to go and do face-to-face learning, but their choice is to actually do online learning? Is there anything that can help them out at all?
Sure. So again, I point back to the community. So we have an awesome Discord server, which is, imagine Slack for you guys, but imagine it for young people. It's in dark mode. It's all super cool. We have some really, really interesting stuff happening, voice channels and radios which run within the server. And yeah, so we have not just academic channels, which are super popular as well, but we also have interest-based channels and just like a chat lounge and all these kind of stuff. So there are places out there where you can communicate, engage with lots of different people around the world. But I just want to I want to pick up on the point that she said, which was that she prefers online learning, and this goes to a bit to the kind of maybe a bit to the question that Merle didn't ask about governments and what they're doing for this. You see, we have realized challenges. You know, we know people have mental health issues. We know anxiety exists. And even more than that, we know accessibility challenges exist, right? We know some people can't go into a building, into certain buildings, into certain places of of work. And at the time when we knew this, we never made any changes. Suddenly, when we've been forced to do this, we've been, okay, every lecture will be recorded. Everything will be available online. Everything will be tried to do as symmetrically as possible to what's happening in real life. And I think it goes back to this. That's the first question of where we're talking about, how is this the new normal? What's this upheaval going to continue to look like? It's going to mean that some of those challenges that we should have been addressing are finally being addressed. And it means that we can't go back to that normal, because we weren't doing stuff right at the time either. So having online material available, to have that foresight to think that there will be students who might not be able to make it on time, to have recordings available. This is going to be crucial, that whether it's educational or economic activity happening, this needs to be kind of like, it needs to be part of the design, rather than, we'll think about that and we'll add it on top. That has been something which I'm really, really, really interested about, because it really makes all my harping about technology and leveraging it and making education better is finally happening just because we've been forced to do it. So I want to see how the world takes it.
I'm with you. I want to see that too. I think it's fascinating, isn't it? We are being changed beyond going backwards, if that makes sense. What's happening now is making us reassess not just the challenges right now, but also how perhaps we should have looked at accessibility before, how we should have been much more committed to recognizing that certain people are excluded, but there is no longer any excuse for them to be excluded. So I think it's a really powerful realization that, as you say, is changing a lot of what we're experiencing now, but is likely to change a lot more of what we experience in the future. We are out of time, folks, which is deeply frustrating, because there's at least 3 other questions that Aaron and I were really keen to ask you, Zubair. But thank you so much for such comprehensive answers and for such honesty. I think it's very inspiring looking at what Znotes is planning to do next. What it already does is pretty impressive, don't you think, Aaron?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's kind of proven that we're going to have to get Zubair on again, because there are so many more questions we want to answer, and there's so much more we want to pick about this one. And again, I just need to say thank you very much for your time, and it's been really, really insightful. And I think more than anything, I think you're getting a bit of inspiration to people out there, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, guys. Those are awesome questions. I hope I've gone far and fast enough.
I think you definitely have. You're taking hundreds of thousands of students far and fast with you, many of whom we very much hope go on and have a stellar studying experience. And guys, we hope you go realize your dreams and you know, create businesses, create teams, go lead people, go do the stuff that inspires you, and be unlimited actually by what's happening right now. It just remains for me to say, again, a massive thank you to the National Enterprise Network for making today's show possible. To say, Aaron, again, high five, buddy. Thank you so much for coming up with the show and the questions with us. Zubair, you were fantastic. Do come back. We will hound you until you do. And in the meantime, guys, have a cracking week. Go far, fast.